I don't let people just sort of go like, this sweeping generalization of like, oh, I'm this person, so that means I'm always right because I'm this, because I like these groups that are considered basically oppressed, right? Just because you're in those groups doesn't mean that you can't be wrong or you can't be an asshole. You know what I mean? It's like, say, like the feminist groups and all that. On TV, they can basically say as ridiculous shit as they want, and nobody's going to call them on it. Certainly guys are not going to call them on and be like, well, it's not really like that, from my perspective, because they're immediately going to get labeled a misogynist, a woman hater, and all that. So they just sort of sit there and, so I just sort of, just have fun with that.
Do you care that much about feminist bloggers shutting people down? Or is it that your comics instinct knows that that's a difficult topic with potential for outrage?
No, it bugs the shit out of me. And I hate watching comedians have to apologize for jokes. It's the stupidest thing ever. And I don't like how somebody in the crowd gets to define what the comedian meant. And I always say, like, it's just like, look, it's your right to go to a comedy show and take a comedian seriously. But just because you took my joke seriously doesn't mean I now meant it. And you literally watch comics go, no, that's not what I meant by it. And they're arguing with them. It's just like, wait, so you know what I'm thinking and what my intention was more than me? And I also feel like it has nothing really to do with the comedian. It has to do with the cause. And what they're trying to do is just shine a light on what they want to change. And they're just using the comedian as a lightning rod to shine it on there. And they don't give a shit what they do to the comedian. So they're actually the asshole. Because if you look at it, the people that they get offended by always seem to have movie careers and TVs, because they're not going to waste their time, for the most part, getting offended by a no-name comic, because they're not going to get any traction. Okay? But if it's, stand-up, whatever, fucking St. Elsewhere's, whatever the name of the show is, so-and-so, got in trouble at the blah, 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 at the comedy club.
Do you ever think it's justified? Do you ever think an attack on what someone said on stage is justified? Do you think it's like it's a sacred space? A comedian can say anything they want with no comeback at all?
Once again, this goes back to just because you're in an oppressed group doesn't mean you can't be an asshole. Just because you're a comic doesn't mean that you're never in the wrong. There's been times that I've been on stage and I've gotten mad and I just said something hurtful to somebody. Okay? So like afterwards, if they wanted to come up to me, I would be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. I'm having a bad day and blah, 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 blah. That's the way it should be handled. This whole fucking thing that you got to have this, why do you got to have like this press conference and it has to be on TV and all, or whatever, in the internet and the blogosphere and all that? Because what it is it's all bullshit, because they don't want an apology. They want the light shined on them and be, look at me, look how my feelings got hurt. This is my cause, blah, blah, blah. And they're using the comic. If it was really just, you said this, I felt it was hurtful, it would be a one-on-one situation. That's what it is. Because no one would even know if it fucking happened.
Yeah.
This is what I love too, is then it goes on the internet and all these other people get offended about something that was said at a show that they weren't at.
Sure.
And then they feel that they're owed an apology. And everybody's all like, oh, me. I swear to God, some of these people on the fucking internet, it's so funny the way that they look at people who are on the stage and they talk about our egos and stuff like that. It's the tipping point is happening where the behavior of some of these fucking people in the crowd, their egos and all of their bullshit, they're outshining some of the worst egomaniacs on my side of the microphone. It's like you guys.
Well, this is it. If you accept there are egomaniacs on your side of the microphone.
Absolutely.
So what my feeling is that maybe the people you're talking about who are making these kind of criticisms, what they feel is that they don't feel powerful. They can't physically come and see you after a show.
Why not?
From their point of view, you're a famous guy. You're making a huge amount of money.
I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying in like
powerful.
a comedy club. In a comedy club.
Oh, sure. But what I mean is, I think we as an audience, I include myself in an audience because I was there last night's show, we as an audience consider you powerful. So if a random blogger they've got no kind of comeback to say this is a problem.
They don't. That's such bullshit.
You don't think?
No.
Well, so you think, do you feel powerful on stage or do you feel more vulnerable than powerful?
I don't think anything. I think I'm going to work and these people paid money and I have to give them their money's worth. And I'm not going to go out there and do some sing-songy knock-knock who's there, because that's insulting to them. And if I go out there in front of 100 people and 99 people enjoyed it and one person didn't, that's really not a big deal. That's sort of, I just hit a home run. And for them to take that one person and act as though they represent the majority, and second of all, that there's some sort of stenographer and remembered exactly what I said, and they're a mind reader and know my intent, and all of this shit, and then you have a kangaroo court, judge, jury, and then I'm a white guy, so immediately I had a privileged upbringing, right? My dad owned a Hollywood studio, and every day I had a gold bar for breakfast.
Well, that's not what privilege means, though, is it?
What do you mean? What is it?
Well, that's not what privilege means, is it? Like, you're the beneficiary of privilege. You can have a shit life and still be privileged. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like, when people refer to, like, male privilege or white privilege, they don't mean that you drove around in a yacht when you were a kid. They just mean that you didn't have to deal with these systematic issues that other people had to deal with, other non-white people.
That's all really vague horseshit.
Okay.
It is. That's all super vague. Human beings are so much more complex than that. So much more complex than that. And there's plenty of people in oppressed groups that have easier roads and way better life than people who are so-called in a privileged group. You can't just look at somebody and be like, that's your skin color, you're that. You can do that with white people. But if you were to do this, if you applied that same formula to somebody who wasn't white, it would be considered racist.
Sure, but I'm just saying that's not what I understand the term privilege to mean. So you're telling me somebody could be getting sexually abused throughout their entire childhood, but because they're white, you know, that they still it doesn't mean
privileged.
That's okay.
But that they still had a privileged life?
No, but they had privilege within the term, within the confines, within the
anal rape, within the anal rape by a family member. They still had this privilege. It's a cartoon, dude. It's a fucking cartoon. Everybody is a fucking cartoon. Everybody gets defined by the cartoon version of them. As a white guy, we're on a yacht. We're in the fucking Illuminati. Sure. You know, we have like the perfect little breakfast, and we get raised by a nanny, and all of this shit. That's the image of like the white. It's not like, despite like in my country, no, the shit I talk about. Like you see these fucking people live in the middle of nowhere where there's like fracking. They've completely destroyed their drinking water, and they're broke ass white people, and nobody cares about them. Okay? So, I mean, I think having clean drinking water, once that's out the window, like, for me, I would not feel that I had this privilege. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's a divisive word. I understand it. I absolutely understand it. But to just sweepingly generalize all white people like their life is a fairy tale is probably the worst way to try and bring people together, because that puts someone on the defensive. And to me, that's 90% of the internet, where it's like, say I make an ignorant comment about something and you actually know the truth of it. Okay? If you just said, listen, man, I'm actually in that industry, or I'm in that blah, 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 or I grew up like that, and you came at me respectfully, I'm way more going to be open-minded to listen to you. But on the internet, the way it's done is, hey, shit, dick, maybe if you blah, 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 they come at you like that.
Yeah, but it's similarly like men's rights activists on the internet are as appalling a group. I think we can agree that people who comment on stuff online...
They're cringeworthy. They're
absolutely
cringeworthy. And they always try to align my shit with their horse shit.
They do. And I tell you what, man, there were some people cheering in the audience last night who I thought, I don't know that they're getting a lot of irony from what Bill's saying.
But here's the thing, though. That's not my responsibility. I'm not a babysitter. And I'm not toning down what I say. And this is the thing. Anything that I say, including to you, the second I'm done saying it, isn't 100% what I said. Because the second I say it, it goes into your ears, into your head, and is immediately cut with your childhood and all of your life experience. Okay? So it's like drugs that have been stepped on. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. So everybody is trying to make human beings out to be these simple, one-dimensional things. And when human beings are so much more complex than the fucking soundbite of 3 seconds into their act, or one joke that they said, and then you're defined, this is who the fuck you are. And I've always said this, okay? If they could download all of your thoughts would you have a job on Monday? Would you not have to make an apology? I don't think anybody could survive that test. But there's this thing walking around where they're just making generalizations like, these people are privileged, these people are oppressed, these people are ignorant, these people are this, these people that. You can make fun of these people, you can't make fun of these people. You know what I mean? You can't make fun of Caitlyn Jenner because of transgender people, blah, 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 blah. Rednecks, you can just say they fucked their sister in the ass and you're going to get a fucking standing ovation, blah, 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 blah. So it's okay to make fun of their poverty. And the fact that their luck was that they fucking, were in the middle of nowhere. In my country, just the fact that their state is not near an ocean, which somehow then just makes you the dumbest person on the planet, according to, New York and L.A., where I'm from. It's just like, this is one of the advantages of being a comedian and traveling, is you get to see all the different types of people, all the different layers, all the different levels, all the different stories within all the different colors of people. So all of that stuff that I see on TV is just a bunch of yammering to me by a bunch of people that really need to expand the friends that they have in their lives. And a lot of them, I feel, I don't know, just the way they just go after comedians like that, it's such lazy journalism. When you have genetically altered food, there's a heroin epidemic, okay, you can just go on and on and on. The oceans are getting fished up. There's major fucking problems. Never talked about. Pharmaceutical companies, getting people hooked on these things that get people on heroin. There should be a class action suit against those guys. All that shit gets fucking oppressed. But you do a Caitlyn Jenner joke in a strip mall, that's going to go on the news. You know why? Because there's no risk. There's no risk. There's no danger to that. There's nothing. If comedians started paying for advertising on fucking network TV, that you'd never see a comic get in another trouble. If we fucking unionized and there was actually money for them to lose by coming after one of us, then you would see a lot of that shit go away.
And where does it come from in you, in your personal life? What is it that's driving you to, where does that anger come from? Because there's a bunch of comics out there who don't specialize in taking apart these kind of topics. I think my passion gets confused with anger. I just think that, I definitely have a temper. And I get frustrated with stuff like that. But I don't just walk around seething in rage. Like, I love my life. I love my wife. I love my dog. I'm just like, I honestly just feel like I think my life is incredible. I do feel like that. But, the shit that I get upset about is just stupid shit. Like, I get mad at the fucking, if you want to do this, press 1. I will absolutely lose my shit. But if my house was to burn down and I lost everything, I would probably laugh and be like, well, fuck it, we'll start over again. It's little things that make me flip out. But I understand why people think that I'm this angry person. I think a lot of times they watch my act and I'm doing a character that has rage, and then they think that it's like my rage or whatever. And I don't know what it is. I came up in a part of the world where this is how people talk. This is normal. And I find people from where I live, when we move out, people always go, what's mad? Are you all right? What's wrong? Why are you yelling? And you're like, I'm not. This is how I talk. The fuck is wrong with you, So I don't know. Maybe I'm more defensive or something like that. But I will say that, I don't know. I just love watching comedy and watching I don't know, just watching these people come on TV and just getting all of this fucking credit as audience members. They're these Peabody Award-winning journalists. It's just like you write a blog. Anybody can fucking do that. And all of a sudden, you're being treated. 1,500 people come out to a show. One person gets offended. That's a story. So why don't they talk to the other 1,400 that went I had a great time? Well, that's the way news works, isn't it? No one's ever going to go, yeah, it was great. It's a great show. That's not going to make the front page ever, isn't it?
Well, that's my point. So I think it's a bunch of outrage about nothing.
So last night you did material about overpopulation, the submarine stuff, the cruise ships. Mm-hmm.
Don't tell too many.
No. I'm not going to.
I got a special coming up. You're killing me here.
I'm not going to give anything away about it. But you tackled the subject of overpopulation.
Right.
Is that okay? I can cut that out if I'm giving away too much.
Absolutely.
So is that really? I love that bit. I found that I was enjoying that bit without any kind of I don't know if I totally agree with Bill's politics on this bit. I don't know if I can quite say where this guy's coming from. You do. Everyone has politics.
I'm a comedian.
Talking to people is a political act. Sharing your opinions is a political act.
Now you're doing what those bloggers do.
Do you think
Now you're telling me what it is that I'm doing. I'm literally telling you what I'm doing, and you're like, no. Just the mere fact you go on stage makes my idea of what you're doing correct. You literally just did it.
Okay,
That's what drives me nuts.
Do you think if you see a movie directed by someone, that person kind of intended for the movie to say something, and you as a viewer can read something different from that movie and go, oh, actually, like in the same way you were saying, that you could look back at earlier
wouldn't
stuff
that be misinterpreting what the person was saying?
It might be misinterpreting what they decided to say, but it might not be misinterpreting what they meant. Like they might have meant something might have come through in their work that they could only.
Dude. You just did like a barrel roll there.
Okay, well, so you were saying that you have looked. You weren't saying right now, but I'm sure I read an interview. Correct me if I'm wrong. That you could look back at some of your previous work and go, okay, I went a little bit hard on that. So you can look back at previous work of yours and go, I don't know that I still agree with what I was saying. Is that right, or I misunderstood that?
Everything. If I look back on any special, I'll look at the performance. I could have done that better. I could have done this better. Yeah, but I mean, this is one of these things, dude, where you're getting way, way, way too deep into this. Like, I don't understand this new analyzing of stand-up comedy. Like it's this this is all it's okay. Just think about this for a second. If comedians actually had the fucking ability to change how people think, it wouldn't be legal. They wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow somebody to have that level of power.
I think that's a funny idea. I get where you're coming from, but I think stand-up comedy has changed the way I think. I grew up listening to stand-up comedy. I'm
so
sure
you literally walk in a comedy show going like, I think this, and then you walk in there and somebody says something, and that now I think that.
No, of course not. You're reducing down to for the sake of no, that didn't happen on one event, but by following a load of comedians and listening to loads of comedy for the last 20 years.
What changed me about they made me want to be a comedian. That's it. It never affected how I voted. It never affected how I treated people. It's a show. You can get inspired and it's make you like you see a rock band. I want to learn how to play drums. You can see a comedian. I want to fucking learn how to be a comic. But to think that it's going to change like your fucking... It's going to take, 18 years of parenting is going to go out the window watching a comedian for like 90 minutes. It doesn't have that level of power. But that's what they're pretending. They're pretending that does while pharmaceutical companies and all these people do the shit that they do, and they don't even report on it.
Yeah. Well, so this is my point. This bit, right. You're talking about overpopulation. So that was
I admit in all of it that I don't read and I'm not up on it, and most of my stuff is conspiracy theory and overhearing shit.
I'm not trying to make you into a spokesperson.
In the airport. So right there, that you shouldn't, right there, what sort of political platform is that? To stand on stage, tell people that you don't pay attention to things, and now I'm going to give you my opinions on it. It's absurd. And that's what makes it stand-up comedy. I'm not running for office. I'm not changing laws or anything.
But I do think if I have a conversation with my friend and he thinks a particular thing, then that might change the way I think about a thing.
All right, and this is the thing. I've gotten to the point in my life that I understand that we're not going to agree on this.
Okay.
So this is just going to just keep going around in a circle, and it's going to get boring for people. So I just, I'm going to do a show today at 3:45. There's going to be no politics in it. I'm going to go up and make, you got to understand, some of the shit, I'm just being absurd. It's just I'm just being stupid for stupid's sake. Fucking when you hang out with comics, some of the shit we say in cars and stuff, over trying to top each other, the stuff that we say is outrageous. And it's just to make each other laugh. So you don't believe it.
If you were a critic and you had to criticize your own act, honestly, knowing what you know about your act.
This is the length of my criticism would be, did he give him their money's worth? Did people go away happy, or does he need to work more? That's all it basically is. What critics do, just sitting there looking for something. I mean, I'm a human being. You know what I mean? Critics are fascinating to me now that they still have them. Because it's kind of like obsolete at this point. It's like everyone in the crowd is a critic now that can be heard. They go on Twitter, they go on Facebook. And I always like the fans' critique of me is, to me, way more accurate. Because they just get right to it. It's like, it was great. Or, or like, what a fucking waste of money. And to me, every show is that.
But if you...
It's either great, it was okay, or what a fucking waste of money. There's shades of that. But to really be like, like just fucking pontificating for 3 fucking pages. I mean, what's funny is none of my actors written down, so they're writing 3 more fucking pages than what they actually went and saw, which is, to me, just but it's an odd thing.
I mean, I totally see where you're coming from, but what I mean is in terms of like your strengths and weaknesses as a comic. Are there like other things that you would like to be able to do on stage that you don't feel you've mastered?
Yeah, there's stuff that I'm working on right now. Absolutely. I'm not going to tell you what it is because then I'm showing the rabbits in the hat, but there's definitely... Well, I look at it like sports. Like if you played basketball and you couldn't go to your left, how do you get better? You go to your left. And so, which goes back to that thing that they always say, to get great, you have to bomb. That was always really vague and I didn't understand it. That's what that means. It's like stop driving towards what you already know how to do. Drive to the shit that you can't do. And like, over the last 6 years, is something that I've consistently been doing and forcing myself to do. And I felt I've had more growth in the last 6 years than I did in probably the previous 8 years. Your first 10, 12 years, it's monstrous growth because you go from not knowing how to do it at all to actually coming up with an hour of material and learning how to headline. It's just everything is such a fucking milestone. But then once you're headlining clubs, that's the point where so many comics, I feel there's not enough information out there for them. Like, now what do I do? How do I keep this challenging and exciting? And you have to go back to the bombing thing, which to me is you go to the clubs. Like, I don't do that on the weekends when someone pays to see me because they want to get their money's worth. They don't want to watch me fucking staring at my navel trying to work this shit out. They didn't pay for a workshop. They paid for a show. So I always try to make sure I give them a show. If I'm killing hard enough, I might try something more difficult. But other than that, I'll just try a few new jokes. But during the week, that's when, you go down there and you bomb. But I've been doing it long enough that I learned how to bomb so I can bomb gracefully. So I'll be up there bombing, but it sounds like I'm having a good set. But in my head, I'm really frustrated because that thing that I'm working on didn't work.
Last thing, are you happy?
Totally. Absolutely. Probably the happiest I've been since I was like a kid. Yeah. You don't seem like you believe it on any level.
I'm just being quiet to just let you finish the end of that sentence just in case there was more to come. Very few comedians. You and Brian Regan. That's basically it. I try to ask that of nearly all of my guests.
Well, because what it ended up somewhere in my 30s, I started 35, 36, you're like times 2 is 70, 72. So I spent half of that being miserable. I don't want to be the miserable guy. I don't want to be that guy that everybody goes, oh man, that guy was like, when you're dead, like that's what they fucking say about you. I mean, my friends who really know me, not the guy on stage or anything, would not be surprised to hear to say that I'm happy. Like I absolutely love my life. I feel unbelievably privileged, to use that word, that like I get to do this for a living, that I get to go to, like people save up their whole lives to go to Europe. And the fact that I can come over here, make money doing my dream job, the job that makes me dance in the kitchen after I just made fucking $8 evidently, is like there's no reason for for me not to be happy. And I also learned how my brain, like I had like mild, I didn't have clinical depression, but I just didn't know how to steer my way out of it. Like some negative thought would pop into my head, and rather than being like, nah, fuck that, it's going to be fine, I would just listen to it and be like, really? Is that what's going to happen? And then what's going to happen? I was just letting this part of my brain just like talking to me.
Did you just...
And none of it was good. And no, that's not something you can just turn around. It took a long time. And I just learned, like, just the same way. Like, if you're trapped in your act, how do I get myself out of this? So if I start to feel depressed, the level of shit that I have, what I do is I'll do something positive. Like, I play drums. That gets the energy going. It's so much fun. It's one of the great instruments. Absolutely love it. That'll get me out of it. Go to the gym. Working out gets me doing. I'm going to try a new bit. You know, maybe there's a new restaurant or something. Like, I go do something. I get out of the house. But, like, if I just sit there, you know, and you just let those thoughts start washing over to you, they're going to drag me down to the bottom of the lagoon. Like, I was feeling some of that yesterday before the afternoon show. You know, showing up, the hotel isn't ready. I'm not a young man anymore. I'm 10 days into this fucking thing, and I'm just thinking, oh, God, this, you know. And I showed up for the gig, and I was just, like, feeling that feeling of, like, I'm ready to go home. I don't want to do this. And then I've just been doing it long enough. I was just like, danger, danger, do not go, do not do that. And then I just was like, right before I went out there, I was like, I'm just going to commit as fucking hard as I can to everything I'm doing. And I went out there and, you know, wasn't thinking anything. And I just started talking, and it was completely silly, totally fucking ridiculous. And I was immediately having a great time. And then the rush of doing what you love for a living totally got rid of all of that stuff. So, I don't know. That's basically, as far as my understanding of myself, how my brain works, how I keep myself out of those areas so I can be happy. But I am.